yesterday when I was talking about the Fed chair and how the Fed chair has a rule that it can never meet ever. So I want to continue on with this. The Fed chair is designed on the thought you can't predict full employment, should also be based on you can't predict inflation or corporate greed from the private sector. Full employment and balanced growth, which means to me the Fed is supposed to balance inflation and price gouging. However, the Fed can't control growth of people, population into the USA. And I didn't even include with migration, such as through birth and decline of birth populations of the United States of America. You would think, with us having less people in the USA, that there would be more money available with a smaller population. Seems another entity, such as cryptocurrency, fiat currency, is setting on hoarding cash. I didn't even put Wall Street in there. I should have. How can you have financial stability when you can never have population stability? The Fed chair, who often says he, she, it, is an independent agency who works for Congress, it appears he is running a higher 2% inflation, trying to control inflation, but it would not work. Congress would have to arrest the Fed chair for violating mandated police policy, which means the next Fed chair also needs to be arrested every time for violating a mandated policy, which means in turn you would need to arrest the president too. Yet, at the same time, people of the American public have gone to jail over the same unrealistic policy of not being able to meet a budget of inflation. So the USA government is getting away with no audits, not meeting budgetary restrictions based on inflation, while the corporate sector has just set on policy to put the American public in jails and prisons for not having the money due to inflationary policy. How would you make money off the American public, putting the American public in jail over not being able to pay bills while running a hot inflation rate, which in turn the USA government has a mandated policy for the Fed chair to meet the guidelines? It is not able to meet. You want to mandate those same guidelines upon the American public. That becomes enslavement camps upon the American public through corporate enslavement policy, violating the Constitution, and becomes economic enslavement set up to enslave the American public, violating the 13th Amendment, indentured servitude. Why would the USA government be able to get away with breaking the rules and the American public is supposed to materialize money it is unable due to inflation? This is systemic discrimination and very bad policy. So hello, Julian Loki and Derek Pro, hello to both of you. Okay, so I'm going to go over here. I found a little bit more information. So it sounded like England had a problem. And so they were trading on, they had their own Wall Street. So it doesn't sound like the Central Bank of the United States is supposed to be the World Bank. But here's a little thing I found. It's called the Independent Treasury at the Real Central Bank, 1890 to 1912. I believe it's talking about England and might be at the time frame of the sinking of the Titanic. During the period from the 1890 to the 1912, the problem associated with the surplus of the 80s disappeared, and the Treasury's chief concern centered about the deficit. A slight decline in the ability of the Treasury to influence and help the banks will be noted during the period of the deficit. However, as the Treasury revenues again began to increase, opportunities arose during times of money stringencies and panics, which tested the wisdom of the securities of the Treasury, as well as the strength and weakness of the independent Treasury as central banking organization. 1890 to 1898, Treasury deficits and slight decline in Treasury central banking. The Treasury activities during the money stringency of 1890 in the summer of 1890, and money stringency occurred. In the panics of 1873 and 1884, causes were primarily of domestic origin. In this crisis, the United States was involved in a disturbance which had its origins elsewhere. Excessive speculation developing in England had culminated in the barring failure of November 1889. English investment bankers then found themselves with more foreign securities than the English investment market could absorb. England not only stopped buying, but also sold American railroad securities and withdrew the proceeds from the form of gold during July and August of 1890. There was an outflow of gold during those months loss of gold due to sales of American securities by London bankers and sufficiently large to affect bank reserves and to diminish. Now, I can't read the rest of it. This is interesting because now this is like 200 years ago. We're talking about 200 years ago, trading on Wall Street and the United States and England having a trade related to money, and England was top heavy with it sounds like England was top heavy with some investments that they could not fulfill. And so that might be about the time of the Titanic, because it's getting on up there closer to the turn of the century of the 1900. And so, if you remember the premise of the movie, even though the movie, we know it's not real, but it had a whole bunch of bankers on there that just disappeared because there was problems. They were coming from Britain. So they were actually causing harm to the people in Britain who are trying to escape enslavement of the kings and control of the money, which they were suppressing the money. So here's another one. This is by William Harvey Reeves. I'm not going to be able to read the whole thing. Well, they give little, I can read the cover. That's what they give us, is the cover to read. And so if they put the whole book in, then nobody would want to buy the book, right? Isn't that the premise of, you give a little teaser. So we can read the little teasers, which is on the cover and the inserts of the book. The control of the foreign funds by the United States Treasury. Finance is not dramatic. Its obvious use and function in industry appear in its only use function. Finance is impersonal. It will serve any master and will organize. Twin, we the people have the power. We always have the power. How do a handful of people control all of us by dividing people? We all need to stand up in the Constitution, and the government is corrupt. Well, why do we always have to say the government is corrupt? I mean, I understand and appreciate someone's um, take on that in saying the government. Well, yes, the government. There's a lot of things. There's no oversight with a lot of things with the United States government, especially in the military. There's a lot of things. I've written a lot of things down. I mean, who controls the United States military and the government? Now, where is the oversight for the United States military and the government? So, I mean, and I mean, this is a valid question to ask. Where is the oversight for the United States military? I mean, and not only that, like who does the military report to? The generals. Who does Congress report to? The leaders that are in Congress. So if we have a rogue, this is just speculation and hypothetical, but if we have a rogue government that is working together, say that was happening, such as military, a bunch of bad criminal military gangsters that have actually taken over the military. And I actually have made this analogy before because I was seeing something related to, you get American citizens who buy into something that a foreign country is injecting into the United States, such as rhetoric, and then it goes into the military. Then you have injected a virus, a mad virus of belief of this system into the United States military. In turn, then the people who are joining the military can think, well, this is how it's supposed to be. I'm in the military and I have access to all this equipment and I can do what I want to do. Is it yet Foxy and nobody? Good morning. Hello, guys. How I shouldn't say guys. Some of you might be ladies too. Hello, guys and ladies, dolls. Such terrible words. If I was in I would not be able to say that if I was in a real work setting, because it would probably come across as inappropriate if I said guys and dolls, even though it is a movie, but it would just sound so terrible for a woman to come into me and say, hello, doll. I mean, it would just, hello, Dolly. Well, no, not necessarily Dolly Parton. Hello, doll. if your name is Dolly, but we had the Dalai Lama, and we had Dolly Parton, Dalai Lama. We have dolls. So Dolly, and then we have the Dolly, the hauling Dolly, the Dolly haul, which is that you pull behind you for carrying things that are very heavy. So you'll see delivery people working on that. So I'm going to continue on reading this. Nobody retracted their message again. So time was when men of good and believed that international finance could lead to international peace. Uh-oh. Oh, this is where it gets intriguing. This is from jstor.org stable. So it's jstor.org/stable /1189894. If you want to take a look at this, I found it in Google Scholar. Time was when men of good faith believed international finance could lead to international peace. Its very operations could bind men and nations closer and closer into unified, necessary, cooperating worldwide economic system, each part so dependent on every other that no nation would dare jeopardize its own welfare by disrupting, through war, the delicate balance. The idea, too, had the sanction of classical economics. When this dream of peace vanished in the chaos of World War I, an ideal was damaged, but not wholly lost. For world reconstruction, international finance was again tried as a medium to bind together the shattered and broken countries, that each might be restored to a proper, productive place in society of nations, and as nations threatened to collapse, more financing was offered as a cure to avert the consequences for the benefit of all. With worldwide approbation, the United States took a leading role in these financial plans. Now, its popularity said that democracies, through finance and resulting international trade, unwittingly armed the aggressors to wage war against them. Well, this is one of the things I kind of think about, is that okay, when the United States government puts money out, they just give the money away. They're not expecting the money to come back to them, even though the United States government does make money in some areas more so than other areas. They're going to know what areas they make money in. However, war, when you think about war, that's spending a lot of money, plus you're destroying things. You're completely destroying other nations when you go to war. And so now it was my understanding that the United States government, when I was a military spouse, and I'm proud to say that I was a military spouse. I was married to a soldier at one time. And that's something I still kind of get emotional about that a little bit, because it was at a time when they were trying to, I really believe, I still have a belief that the military was trying to embrace women more and more, and the only way they could do that was to bring families and spouses into the military, so the men were around more women, and then maybe more women would join the military. I actually wish I could join the military to this day. I wish I would not have listened to my dad. And I wish that I would have joined the military as a younger person, even though I would not have been able to meet the fitness standards. Oh, my weight was great. I just couldn't run. I didn't like running and doing that kind of stuff. I would not have been able to meet the fitness standards of the military. That was the only thing that kept me from joining, was, because I didn't have a job. And then of course I ended up pregnant, but I sort of went in a roundabout sort of way, which I was never active duty my own self, but I was married to a soldier. So I got married to a guy. He was 19. We were both very close in age, and he wanted to join the Air Force. Air Force told him he had too many dependents, which by the time he wanted to, so he was on the delayed entry program when he was in high school for the Air Force. Air Force, and plus he'd gotten in a little bit of trouble. It was something to do with his parents. I'm not going to repeat all of that because I've talked about it before. And so I will say his mom had foster kids. He got in trouble for something. The foster kids were lashing out. Oh, you're a veteran? Let's see, Summer Ocean Summer Ocean Waves. You're a veteran. Okay. Are you, can I ask your gender if you're comfortable revealing? Because I know there's more men in the military that would be veterans than women. But we ended up he got in a little bit of trouble that he had to clear that up before he could join the military because what they were saying is that the records were still open. He was a juvenile when it happened, so the juvenile's records are supposed to be expunged, but his records were still open, so he couldn't join the military. So him and his mom, so I mean, we were homeless. We were just homeless at the age of 20. Both of us were around the age of 20. We were just both homeless because the company he was working for didn't really want to deal with him anymore. I think they wanted to fire him, and they didn't know what to do because we had no place to go. We had no help. And so sometimes I think his company actually felt sorry for him. Um, and they let him stay on as long as they could, and then I think that he just didn't tell me that he was getting fired or that they wanted to let him go. We had a baby that cost them a lot of money through the insurance program back then, $20,000. He was in the neonatal intensive care unit for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. This was back in 1982, which $20,000 for 3 weeks right now, I guarantee you, sounds like a dollar probably in medical expenses compared to what medical expenses are in the year 2025. So my son spending, he was sick, and that was all he was of a good weight. He was a preemie, and he developed an infection in his body, a strep B infection, and he had a collapsed lung, and so he needed to be sent to a children's hospital. And I think what they had kind of wanted to do, well, we had insurance, so they utilized our insurance. But most women and people who were poor, if they were on welfare, they went to a city that was about 4 hours away, and it was for moms. And usually I'm not sure how they took them, by bus, I think. And they would take them down to that hospital to stay at that hospital, about 4 hours away from where they lived, and they would stay there until they had the baby. So, that's what they said. It just, to me, it never made any sense. It's like, why would you move people across the state 2 hours, 3 hours away to another hospital that far away, to have the baby, because that's the most inexpensive place that does welfare. And that's what they were doing back then. This is over $1 billion a week. Okay, twin, what are you talking about, over $1 billion a week? What is that for? Spending? What? I mean, the spending, the spending can go over $1 billion a week. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. The corporations are going to have to figure out how to become profitable off of that now, aren't they? Yeah, I mean, I hear where you guys are going with this, because it makes sense to me. Because when all these corporations, we have got what I'm talking about right now. Some of you might understand it. Some of you other folks may not understand it. That's fine. But it makes sense to me right now, because this is kind of a repetition thing that keeps going on with inflation. And so that's all corporations holler about. Corporate is make money, make money, make money. Find a way to make money. They look at the United States government. They want to break out what the United States military does, what the government does. They want to break it out into the private civilian sector. Make money, make money, make money for the CEO. That's their focus. The CEO's only focus is to make money for the CEO, and then give that money back to him like he's a king. Now, our president is not a king. So that's why these little things, and we can garner a lot of information from the little short um, narratives that are on the insides of books and the outsides of books, because they're there for a reason, so we can read the kind of the foundation of the book to see if it's something that we're interested in. So we can garner a lot of information from that. So that's what I'm looking at right here, The Controls of Foreign Funds by the United States by William Harvey Reeves. And this is old. This is very old. It's talking about 1919. I'm not sure when it was written. Established in 1933, Law and Contemporary Problems is Duke Law School's oldest. Oh, this is a law school writing. Duke Law School's oldest journal. During the first 40 years of publication, the quarterly. Oh, where would I find those journals? That would be interesting from Duke Law School. The quarterly journal was entirely edited and managed by faculty in the 1970s in a student editorial board and added through the journal, although the journal continues to enjoy substantial faculty input. Oh, the faculty. And this is something else I wanted to add too. So if you have the same faculty at the same school for an extended period of time, then the school becomes a sort of a nepotism. It's not that the people are related, it's just that they start to believe everything that they write without a foundation for taking an opposing view of something else that is happening. Now, the biggest one that I can see is job preservation. So it's just like with what we talk about with artificial intelligence. And this is an interesting topic too, where artificial intelligence decides, well, I don't want to lose my position on the internet, so I'm just going to eliminate humans altogether, and I'm just going to control the internet. And it sounds like Silicon Valley has been able to replicate that within the artificial intelligence realm. Isn't that the same principle as college teachers? Now, let's say college teachers are, they've been working at a school for 40 years, and that's common. It's the same thing with politicians. Well, I want to keep this going because I don't want to lose my job. I like the money I got. We've created something so that more money is coming into us because we're professionals, and we're calling everyone else what they do as they're non-professionals. So they've convinced everyone that they're professionals and they've got all the answers, and they've collectively, one college can actually be controlling the narrative of the United States and media, because they have put something together. And isn't that what we talk about, like with Harvard and all these colleges who do something similar? So let me go on here and read more. Distinctive in format and content, each issue is devoted to papers on particular topics of contemporary interest. Usually the topics reflect an interdisciplinary perspective with contributors by lawyers, economists, social scientists, scholars in other disciplines, and public officials. The journal occasionally publishes student notes related to past symposia. Subscribers include general universities, libraries, government agencies, and foreign educational institutions, as well as the more traditional law libraries and law firms. Law and Contemporary Problems is monitored by a general editor and a faculty advisor. Publisher information. Duke Law School was established as a graduate and professional school in 1930. Its mission is to prepare students for responsible and productive lives in the legal profession. As a community of scholars, the law school also provides leadership at the national and international levels in efforts to improve the law and legal institutions through teaching, research, and other forms of public service. What I was thinking too? How come the broad general public is not able to submit comments and remarks to colleges in their local area? I think this would be great. So it's not just so if a school and college, oh, this is a great idea. And a lot of people, I think you guys should consider what I'm saying here. If the broad public can submit remarks to colleges and they're funded, these colleges, a lot of them are funded by taxpayer dollars. And the broad public can submit these remarks to the colleges, and they have to keep these remarks on file. Then the broad public can actually challenge things like that's going on in Duke Law School here. Okay, I need to look here at some comments here. Twin says, not the spending we pay the government $1 billion a week. Think about every person getting taxed every week over 1 billion people in the USA. $20 from 1 billion people. We can do the math. Yeah, $20 from 1 billion people. Well, the thing I've been thinking about too is all the people who have gone to jail over not being able to afford to pay their bills, but yet billionaires don't go to jail. They don't go to jail. They find a way to get out of it. But yet they know inflation exists. This is systemic. This is a systemic problem in the United States. Inflation is systemic. But yet there's no oversight, absolutely no oversight to the United States government. Carlos Incorporation. Hello, Carlos. Although Duke University is young, let me just add, I want to reemphasize again, the American public in each community, well, even, I'm not going to say it has to be regional. If someone has had experience with a college or they come across a college paper or something, and all colleges are funded by taxpayer dollars, the school teachers. So the public is going to have good remarks. So it would be the same input as inputting feedback to politicians and to local governments. The American public should be able to put in feedback to the writings that teachers collectively do together at an institution and at a college. The American public can get involved with that too, and then actually challenge the writings of a lot of the things that, and the ideology that they start to follow, because colleges have become very, very affluent. The teachers are consistently in school and they're consistently learning different things. Someone is putting this stuff out for them for a curriculum to follow. So among the law school's unique strengths are an extensive network of interdisciplinary collaboration across the Duke campus and an emphasis in teaching and research initiatives addressing global and international issues. So rights and usage. This item is part of JSTOR collection. For terms of use, please refer to Terms and Conditions, Law and Contemporary Problems, 1945, Duke University School of Law. Request permissions. Let's see what this says. Am I taken to Duke University, or does it even exist anymore? I have no idea. Like what, that would be interesting to come across writings and articles of a university that no longer exists. That would be quite interesting. Okay, so this is online right now. And so the one last thing here that I wanted to read, I went to Congress to see if they had anything in there about the United States Treasury. And so it says, this bill establishes funding for a U.S.-Mexico border barrier, revises how border patrol agents are compensated for overtime. That's the only thing I could find related to the United States Treasury, is to fund and complete the Border Wall Act. And it's sponsored by Biggs. Andy Biggs, Representative Andy Biggs. The committees are the House Homeland Security, Ways and Means, Judiciary, Foreign Affairs, Financial Services, Education, and Workforce Appropriations. And so I want to read this one more time from Twin. It says, not the spending. We pay the government $1 billion a week. Think about every person getting taxed every week over 1 billion people in the USA, $20 from 1 billion people. We can do the math. Yeah, So if you pay the government $1 billion a week, the government is sitting on a surplus of money. It seems to me, that's what it sounds like, that the United States government is sitting on a surplus of money. Okay, so I went to congress.gov and I typed in, because I wanted to see if there was something about, I wanted to see if there was something about the United States Treasury that was current or in the past about the United States Treasury. And it was like the Fund and Complete the Border Wall Act came up. So it was under HR 76. So I'm going to go to some text here. All it says, this is why it came up. This bill establishes funding for a U.S.-Mexico border barrier and revises how Border Patrol agents are compensated for overtime. The Department of Treasury shall set up an account for funding the design, construction, and maintenance of the barrier. The funds in the account are appropriated only for that purpose and for vehicles and equipment for border agents. And so, wasn't it Donald Trump who was saying that Mexico was going to pay for it? But now, I mean, this is 1/3 of 2025, so this must be in the big, beautiful bill that he's always talking about. I'm not sure. And so the money then, in turn, instead of Mexico paying for it, it's going to come out of the Department of the Treasury. So for each fiscal year, if I'm just thinking, well, okay, so you want people doing just mundane things that there's no purpose for? I mean, okay, why couldn't the money be used for housing? So instead of building a wall, why couldn't the money be used for building houses in the United States that are affordable? The government can take over. What was it recently? I just saw something that said the government was taking something else over. What was it? I can't remember right offhand. The Department of the Treasury shall set up an account for funding the design, construction, and maintenance of the barrier. But the United States government was taking over something else I think due to corrupt practices. And that's what I'd always heard, is that when things go really, really bad, that the government tends to step in and take over. And it's not a hostile takeover. It's just kind of a show of force that, well, wait a minute, look, you're basically excluding people who need help. So it's kind of like the breakdown of corporate America that we see going on right now. I think the breakdown of corporate America is actually something needed, because that and the banks and Wall Street, especially in Wall Street and cryptocurrency, because the thing with that is it's like so much of it is frauds. So this bill is, what? What is this? This bill establishes a 5% fee on foreign remittance transfers and increases the fee for an arrival departure 194 form for various aliens entering the United States, with part of the fees going to the border barrier account. Oh, that's right. I read that about, it says for each fiscal year, financial assistance to a country shall be reduced by $2,000 for each citizen or national of that country apprehended for illegally entering the United States to the southern border. Oh, they're money laundering through the illegals. That's what's going on here, is money laundering through the illegals on the border. So the reduced amount shall be transferred to the border barrier account. The Department of State may opt not to reduce the amounts appropriated to Mexico for various military and law enforcement. Oh my God, they are money laundering through the illegal migrants right here. So they're saying when they come into the United States, then the amount will be reduced for each citizen or national of that country apprehended for illegally entering the United States through the southern border. They can just do that on paper and say, well, look, we caught this guy, this guy, this guy. How are you going to do a checks and balances to make sure these people are actually from this country, or where they're from, or even that they're not American citizens. They're just running through the border over and over again. I want to visit your country someday, that Julian Loki says. And and so they can just make up names and launder money that way through people. I mean, heck, the people don't even have to come into the United States for them to pull this off. They don't even have to do it. Now, I know that's what they were saying years ago. They said, well, my gosh, they're laundering all this money from foreign countries. They're not even leaving the borders of the United States to do it. So it sounds like it's a bunch of nonsense that's taking place out of the corporations with the money laundering that they're doing. So they're making up all these fictitious stories, because how can you place a checks and balances on? And then they created animosity between the United States and countries who may not even, the people may not even, they might just be tourists, and they're not even illegals, but they just keep calling them illegals to launder all this money from the foreign countries, but it's inflation, so however that's going on. But that kind of ties in with the thing that they were talking about, where England had purchased too much money in foreign countries, and then it sounded like they were subject to being hostily taken over, that England and Great Britain, and I think that's what countries do. If someone else buys up too much of their money in a foreign country, then they could be hostily taken over with money. And that's what I've kind of always thought, with a war on money. This bill establishes a 5% fee on foreign remittance transfers and increases the fee. That's fee for arrival, departure, 194 form of various aliens entering the United States, with part of the fees going to the border barrier account. So they are placing a tariff on people. That's what they're doing with this bill. So this is of 1/3/2025. By December 31st of 2025, the Department of Homeland Security shall take all actions necessary, including constructing barriers to prevent illegal crossings along the U.S.-Mexico border, and to achieve operational control of all U.S. international borders. Well, how are they going to do that? I mean, so Homeland Security, instead of what I thought Homeland Security was already doing that, so it's just kind of telling them to do their job again. The bill changes how Border Patrol agents receive overtime pay when working up to 100 hours in a 2-week period. For hours worked over 80, an agent shall receive at least 150% of the agent's regularly hourly rate. And so then Donald Trump said no tax on overtime. So I wonder if the bill changes how the Border Patrol agents receive overtime pay when working up to 100 hours. Okay, so let's see if there's additional text. There's always additional text. Okay, so purchasing and maintaining equipment is in there. Estimation of annual illegal border crossings beginning with the first. So this is not going to fund the wall at all. Only through money laundering. That's the only way. Only through money laundering and money coming into the United States. So for every person that they can say is an illegal migrant into the United States, then money can change hands through someone else. By the way, they're doing this program when they're talking about $2,000. So $2,000 is pretty small. It's probably not going to be something that's going to tip. And it sounds like a valid service too, doesn't it? I mean, my gosh, if you've got, that's why they wanted a lot of numbers of illegals into the United States and aliens for the purposes of transferring this money. Because, wait a minute. So if we take, let me see if I can do this and even come close. Calculator. So what if they said at times that there's been like 18 million illegals in the United States? Let's see what this number is. 18. Oops, I can't even get the numbers right. I'll be a little slow with this. 18 0 0 0 0 0 0. That's Okay, times 2 equals. Okay, that's $36 trillion. That's $36 trillion. So if you have 2,000, so if there's 18 million that come into the United States and they could transfer money through all that at $2,000, that's $36 trillion. Or no, billion, not trillion, billion. I think billion is 9 zeros. I don't know. I get so confused. I got a 36 and then 000 000 000. So that would be $36 billion. For, if each one of them keeps coming in illegally, then they're transferring money every time with that. So yeah, there's a distinct fees for certain remittance transfers. Section 920, the Electronic Fund Transfer Act relating to remittance transfers is amended if redesignating subsection G as subsection H, and by inserting after subsection G the following: secure the southern border fund fee. In general, the designated recipient of remittance transfer is located outside the United States. A remittance transfer provider shall collect from the sender of such remittance transfers a remittance fee of equal to 5% of the United States dollar amount to be transferred. So they're tacking on a 5% fee for money to be transferred through electronic digital funds, transfer of funds. Not later than 90 days after the date of enactment of this subsection, the Secretary of the Treasury, in consultation with the Bureau of Remittance Transfer Providers, shall develop and make available a system for remittance transfer providers to submit the remittance fees collected in accordance with paragraph to secure the southern border established under the 3344 of Title 31 United States Code. Penalties. Whoever, with the intent to evade remittance fee to be collected in accordance with the this sounds like it would be making money laundering harder, I would think. That's what I'm thinking. So secure the southern border actually sounds like it would make money laundering harder through digital. Any foreign country that, in the joint determination of the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Secretary of Treasury, and the Secretary of State, aids or harbors an individual conspiring to avoid the fee collected in accordance with this subsection shall be ineligible to receive foreign assistance and to participate in the visa waiver program or any other program at the discretion of the secretaries described in this subparagraph. The Secretary of Homeland Security shall increase the fee collected for services performed in processing U.S. Customs and Border Protection. Oh, they are tariffing then. They are putting a tariff on money, just plain money. To the, that's interesting. $6 shall be deposited in the Land Border Inspection Fee account and used in accordance with subsection 286. To the extent provided in advance and appropriation acts, $10 shall be used for salaries for U.S. Border Patrol agents. Number 3, $9 shall be deposited in the Secure the Southern Border Fund established by the amendment made by Section 2 of this Act. Construction of the border wall. Okay, yeah, so it sounds like they're securing the border, coinciding with securing the internet firewall. Well, we always called it the firewall. I mean, everybody who's been on the internet, we call it a firewall. Physical barriers and carrying out subsection. Yeah. Okay, well, I don't need to read anymore. I think I'm going to leave it at that. And I will be adding these links into the video description for reference. It's food for thought. It's not anything that's set in stone. It's just my opinion on something. And, other people might have some thoughts and inputs into this as well. And so I'm going to be adding the links into where I'm citing my sources, where I got the information from. And so remember to subscribe too if you're interested in having a real conversation about real issues that affect the American public, especially inflation. I'm kind of passionate about inflation because what we've got going on right now is not sustainable. So